Michael Jordan he played 15 seasons. Arguably the greatest basketball player that ever lived. 5 MVPs, 6 championship rings. But I remember this one Nike commercial he did. That doesn't say much because he did a bunch of them. But I remember one specifically. It's him walking into a packed arena and everybody's chanting his name. And he shocks them when he steps up to the microphone and he says, "I missed 9,000 shots in my career. And I've lost almost 300 games in my career. And I've missed 26 potential game-winning shots in my career. I have failed over and over and over again." And then he looked up at the crowd and smiled and he said, "And that's why I succeed." See, whether you fall down or not is not the issue. The issue is what you do after you fall down. We have to get up. The first step to getting up is deciding that staying down is just not an option. So I want to share 2 truths about endurance that help us get back up when we are knocked down. The first truth is that falling down is inevitable. It's a fact of life. Let's be honest. We are going to fall down. But it doesn't have to be our final act. We can let failure grip us, or we can get a grip on it. Failure is inevitable. Michael Jordan said that, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Everybody falls. But how far you fall is determined by how prepared you are for it. You have to anticipate the fall. And you have to learn from the fall. And you have to not duplicate the fall. So the first truth about endurance is falling down is inevitable. The second truth is that endurance requires a center of balance. It's no coincidence that these little guys are shaped like eggs. No coincidence whatsoever. This is nature's best design as far as support structure is concerned. I don't know if you've ever tried this, but I read this once and thought they were nuts until I tried it. It's nearly impossible to hold an egg in your hand like this and break it. I've achieved it once, and I think it was because I wasn't holding it right. But if you get it firmly in the palm of your hand, it's almost impossible to break it because of the design of this thing. It allows the energy to be displaced throughout the toy instead of just on one part of it. And it acts in union with this marvelously low center of gravity that this thing has. Weebles have an inner sense of balance and an outer shape that allows for recovery. So like these little guys, we need a strong center of balance. And there are 3 important factors to balance: determination, resilience, and purpose. Determination, resilience, and purpose. Determination is the wake-up call to our human will. And resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity. And purpose is that thing that God is calling you to. So when you fall down, remember the ultimate goal. Remember your reason for being and your purpose. In Hebrews chapter 12, Paul says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders us and the sin that so easily entangles us. And let us run with endurance the race that's marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus Christ, the pioneer and perfecter of faith." Paul's appeal here to run the race with endurance suggests that Christian faith is more marathon than sprint. We're supposed to continue to press forward to the mark, Paul says. And the verb press there comes from the Greek, and it literally means to follow or to pursue. The Greeks used that word to describe what a hunter who was eagerly or relentlessly pursuing his prey would do. You don't become winning athletes by listening to lectures or watching movies or reading books or cheering at the games. You become a winner only when you get into the race with steadfast determination to win, to not quit, to not turn back, to not give in or throw in the towel or slow down. Because let's be honest, not about you, but I think the world says give up a lot. I think that's kind of the mantra of the world some days is give up. It's too hard. But every time the world says give up, God whispers in our ear, try one more time. Try one more time. If you want to be a winner in the Christian race, you have to have the spirit of endurance. You have to pick yourself up and decide that staying down is not an option. It was England's greatest nightmare. The German army was taking over Europe, and the British were being bombed regularly. And in the midst of that, Winston Churchill addressed his people, and he said that what's now a famous quote. He said, and I'm going to do it literally, never, 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 never give up. This could be our finest hour. So no matter what quitting point you might be facing today, take a lesson from Jesus. That regardless of our personal struggles, we need to remember Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Remember that story? He leaves his disciples out at the edge and he comes in further to pray. And if you remember, he wants out. He wants out. He didn't want to face the coming day. He didn't want to go through the ordeal he knew was coming. And he even prayed that God would take the cup from him. But he also understood that he was in it for the long haul. And he realized that he was part of a much larger picture. And he realized that he had been called to a special task, an important task, a holy task. Think about that. Jesus could have just as easily gone out the other side of the garden and slipped on over the Mount of Olives and disappeared into the wilderness and had none of that stuff happen to him. Could have easily done that, but he didn't. He persevered. And he summoned up his willpower and he faced the day that was coming. So our greatest inspiration for enduring is found in the one who hung on Calvary's cross, because he did it for our sake. When I survey the wondrous cross, how he willingly died for our sins and for our forgiveness, I am encouraged to continue to endure. I mean, we've all faced times when we wanted to quit. But my earnest prayer for each of us this morning is to hear God's voice calling you to the race. Will you be like these little guys? Will you refuse to stay down? Will you throw off everything that keeps you from running the race? Will you run with determination? Will you run with conviction? Will you run with endurance? Will you invite Jesus Christ into your heart so that he can fix your eyes upon the finish line of faith? Would you pray with me?